Good morning, Volleyball Coaches of Canada. It's Coach Wildman here, May 29th. Today we have the University of Brandon women's head coach Lee Carter, an absolute legend in the volleyball world. We're here to pick his mind for an hour. So we're excited to have him on board. As per normal, we are going to do Q&A, so feel free to throw your questions in the comments below, and we'll get started. Just give me 1 second here. Good morning, Lee. How are you?
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me on. It should be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being a part of it. Let's do a little intro on who you are and what you do and how long you've been in the volleyball world and all that interesting stuff right off the start.
So I'm the head coach at Brandon University, and this is my 15th season. We just finished. In 2018, I was sabbatical, so other than that year, I've been only head coach at Brandon University. We were able to start the program 15 years ago. Before that, I coached at Grand Prairie College. I did 5 years as head coach and 3 years as assistant coach out there at ACAC. And then before that, I was doing a lot of provincial team stuff. I was living in Killam, Alberta, and coaching the Killam Spartan Club, as well as a whole bunch of high school and junior high teams, and then Team Alberta men and women at different times throughout. When I moved to Manitoba here, I was lucky enough to be close to the national team, so I spent a good part of 10 years as guest coach or assistant coach or team coach or manager with a little bit with Mia when he was doing it, and then for the 8 years that Lupo was doing it, I was around for a month every summer with them, and I learned a lot, and it was a lot of fun, and my growth in volleyball come a long way. I myself never played volleyball. I was a hockey lacrosse guy growing up. Learned a little bit about softball later on in my life when I started teaching in a town called Alliance, so they needed a first baseman. Because the old phys ed teacher moved, I was now the new first baseman, so I learned a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. Well, you've done quite a lot in the years that you've been a part of the sport. I know you've been a part of many of these conversations prior to today, so you're gonna hear some of the same questions, I'm sure. But let's start off with the simple one. What's your coaching philosophy?
Well, I love to make coaches. So my goal is that when athletes leave, they fall in love, they want to continue to be involved, and they want to coach. So I think it's great that we try to make coaches.
Right.
In my job interview, I went with what we call a RAC philosophy because I had to spice it up. So that's respect, attitude, commitment, and knowledge. So respect for your teammates, respect for the community, respect for the school, respect for the officials, all that, positive attitude, commitment to everything you do, whether it's on the court, off the court, in the classroom, and then we'll help you leave here with a bunch of knowledge. And then if that's not working, it all adds together to the rack. So there is a little punishment once in a while. We need to put you on the rack.
Okay, fair. Do you have any influences or influencers regarding your coaching style, your technique, mentors? Who do you lean on when you need help?
Just about everybody. So first mentor was Bob Gerbrook, the late Bob Gerbrook out of Killam. He was the one that walked up to me one day when I was playing senior hockey at 28 years old and reminded me I wasn't very good and maybe I should try coaching. So he steered my shift from playing senior men's hockey into coaching. And then when I was there, I spent Wednesdays for a couple of years with Keith Hansen. I would drive the 2 hours to Red Deer to watch Keith's program. And then I got lucky enough to get hired at Grand Prairie College, where Ron Thompson became a huge mentor of mine. And and then Hugh Bartlett was there, and Ron Thompson, and Lee Goldie, Johnson, they were all there. But then I was doing provincial teams, so I actually met Rod Durant when I was doing my level 1, and I begged him if I could be his assistant coach for a summer with Team Alberta Men so I could see what that was like. And so Roddy's been a really big part of my life. I ended up emceeing Rod's wedding, and actually Sean as well. I emceed his wedding. So Rod, Sean, Keith, Ron, we talk quite a bit. Yeah, on the women's side, Steve McNeil and I talk every week. Chad Grimm and I talk every week.
Yeah.
Rick Scott and I met when he was in Manitoba, and we stayed good friends. Olivier out of Montreal, we communicate quite a bit. So yeah, like I said, I have tons. Lori Eisler, when I was at Grand Prairie College, she opened her gym for me, and I could come anytime I wanted and just watch or help or see what was going on. So, Kevin Boyles at UP, I followed him around when I hired at Brandon. And then the last one, Jeana Schmidt. Like when I was on sabbatical, Jeana opened her gym for me for 2.5 months so I could come and see what NCAA was, watch her program. And that was a phenomenal learning experience for me. And considering I coached Jeana when she was U17 and U18, it kind of was great to come full circle and see what an awesome woman she became and is.
Yeah, no, Jeana is amazing. I mean, you dropped some incredibly big names in the volleyball world there. And, the thing that I would touch on regarding your response there is this is what Volleyball Coaches of Canada is all about. It's all about networking. It's all about picking each other's brains, figuring out what works for you and whatnot. And I think there's a lot of younger coaches, the new coaches that come into the game that think that they have to keep all their secrets to themselves and stuff like that. And if we work together, the game's going to, obviously be stronger in Canada. Our national team's going to have better results. And it's a snowball effect, if you will. Right. So, who is the guy? Oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. Who is the gentleman that you mentioned from Quebec? Olivier?
Yeah,
we got him on in a couple weeks, so I'm pretty stoked about that. So some Quebec representation there. So, but yeah, the questions are already coming in. So let's hit it. Trinity Western University women's head coach Ryan Hofer. Lee, you have been on journey of exploring culture. What have been some of your biggest takeaways? I can't speak this morning. There you go. Did you get that?
I did, yeah. And Ryan has actually been pretty good. Ryan and I, quite often after we finish playing each other, we'll sit down and go over our game plans against each other and try to help each other fill holes that we might not see in our day-to-day. So I appreciate Ryan Hofer as well as a name that kind of slipped when you're going. My culture has been interesting. It goes, and I'm finding the biggest thing is communication. A couple of years ago, when I was on my sabbatical, I was able to drop into Kerry McDonald's practices with his UBC men, and he starts his practice all the time with a gratitude circle, and they just bring that forward to help make the practice start on a positive note. And we took that forward to our team to try to do it. And then Kerry also started doing Monday meetings where he would meet with 5 minutes with every player. And I did that a couple of years ago. The rapport was that it was a little bit too much meeting. Like the girls needed a little bit of less. So we went back to 4 meetings last year, and so we're trying to compromise. But the big thing is communication. Like I find with culture, people need to know where they stand, and they need to understand, your thought process. We all get the little heckler in your brain, and you try to guess what the other person is saying. Quite often it puts it into a negative spot, which, can be solved with conversation.
Right. Okay. Greg, I screw up his name every time. So, Greg Poitras. Did I say it right, Greg? Let me know. Hey, coach. Coaches of programs at your level often talk about a brand of volleyball like they'd like to play. They also talk about their type of culture, which you've touched on, and how they like to represent the school. What does it mean to be a Bobcat? What is Bobcat volleyball? Great question.
Greg Poitras did his master's with me at UVic
Okay.
summers, and we're actually one summer. So Greg is also an influence with mine. I talk to him all the time, and he's actually a pretty good cook. If you guys have an opportunity to have him cook, so
Fair enough.
thanks, Poitras. Like we want to be an athletic team. So our image, if when we image set at the beginning of the year, we ask our team to come up with what kind of comments we want the opposition to say when they finish us. And we want them, quite often we come up with the idea that we want to have relentless defense, and we want to work really hard, and our offense needs to be. We're not the bigger team. We're not one of the bigger teams in the league, so we need to be able to beat the block, be smart, and then keep the ball play off when they're attacking at us as much as we can. And it's something that we pride. We pride trying to frustrate other sides and put them in position. So being a Bobcat would mean working hard, learning the game, and being a good teammate.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned before that you're about developing new coaches after, you might be hanging up your shoes on the wall. How do you influence your coaching staff, and what sort of delegations do you give to them regarding making the team work as a whole?
Oh, good question. If you can see behind me, we have my whiteboard. I'm in my office, and we have our courts up. So my assistant coach is Ashley Hosfeld right now, and she's played for us for a couple of years and played a few years in the Ontario College before she came to do her exercise science degree. And so Ashley and I plan practice together, and quite often it's just asking questions and getting her to think about which way, why are we entering the ball this way? Why are we trying to do this kind of situation?
Okay.
And then we talk about that, and then we'll put it into electronic copy. My other assistant coach is Dean Lowry, and Dean used to coach at Western Ontario for a bunch of years, and he's been around quite a bit. So he also comes into these kind of guide Ashley along that way, and I think she's going to be a phenomenal head coach one day. She just needs the experience and to get her coaching muscle, like everything else, refined.
Sure.
And then just discussing. I do a lot of coaching, and I want people to ask questions and to see how I do things and to keep learning and just keep challenging people. Jesse Knight and I, one time when Jesse was starting, he was coaching with Doug at the time, and we were in Manitoba, and he was doing the junior team, and I was around helping with tryouts with the senior women, and we were staying in res together, and we argued over bunch blocking and swing blocking 3 days straight. And even though I agreed with Jesse, I still took the opposite side. Keep challenging him and ask him questions, and to do that. And at the end, we both kind of laughed because I'm a big believer in punch blocking at that time, and slowly transitioned that into swing blocking.
Fair enough. I can imagine that conversation. So knowing Jesse for many years,
we were in like one of those community showers with, you had your 4 different blocked off showers.
Yeah.
And the other coaches was like, enough, guys. I've heard this for 2 days straight.
Classic. Hugh Bartlett has a question. Hi, Lee. How has your work with national teams changed your approach with U Sport teams? If so, how?
Great question, Hugh. Every level I went up. So when I was coaching at Grand Prairie College, I thought we were pretty close to the U Sport until I got to U Sport and realized how much bigger and faster it was. And then I thought, this league is tremendous. And then I got to work with the national and see what that level was like, and then come back to U Sport and realize we don't hit the ball hard enough. we don't serve the ball enough, and we don't run the speed fast enough, and that we need to block in two zones. Where before I was just like going with what everybody had always taught us, and it wasn't until I saw a level above each time that I was able to readjust what I thought was possible. And I remember working with the national team, and Scott Koski was ripping balls off a box trying to get the couple of liberos to defend it, and they were, after we're in there, and they were saying, like, nobody's going to hit the ball that hard until the first time we played against the Dominican, and they came up on a pipe and just ripped it, and then they were like, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. So until you recognize how hard the women hit the ball internationally, you don't realize what hard is.
Okay,
so that's one of the things that changed.
Let's go more in depth into the two blocking. You said you block two zones. What can you kind of go further into that for the coaches that are listening?
So at our university level, whether you're a spread block team or a bunch block team,
yeah,
as an outside hitter, you need to be able to help in two zones. You need to be able to help in the middle zone as well as your outside zone.
Right.
And you have to read both. So before, we used to just kind of stay at the pick up with your hitter, the middle followed the middle. But now we need the speed of the game has got to the point where we need to be able to have people assist in each zone.
Got it. Okay. No, awesome. UBCO women's head coach Steve Manuel. Hey, Lee, explain to us why your team doesn't do a traditional pre-match hitting warm-up, but play wash instead. I've seen other teams do this. Good question, Steve.
So we've a while back, Dan Gilbert used to coach at SAIT, and he's doing Manitoba provincial team. Dan and I did a little research about how many contacts you get in a hitting warm-up, and on a traditional team they get between 7 and 8 depending on how they do things. So we then counted how many you get in a wash, and you would get between 5 and 6 traditionally. So we decided that 5 game-like reps or 6 game-like reps are better than 7 traditional reps. And if you toss 3 of them, your middles are only getting 4 attempts off your setter to try to get their feel and timing. And if one's not there, then you're down 1. So we felt that wash warms up our libero better. It warms up our vision so that we know what we're looking for and adjusting as we get going, and it's pretty quick. So we've gone to that, and I really like it. The athletes like it in the way that we're running it, and yeah, it's been pretty good, I think. Doug does it too a little bit at UBC. We do it a little bit longer than Doug, but he was the first one that I saw to do it in Canada.
Yeah. So let's, you see some teams that run 2 setters at the net and have 2 coaches throwing in balls, and maybe like the left side passes and then goes out and transitions to a hit. What are your thoughts on that in a warm-up, having 2 setters actually physically? Is it too many people on the court, potential for injury? I don't know if it happens at youth sport level, but you do see it in the club level that some teams go down that road.
You do, and it adds 2 attacks only to the entire attacking. So again, it's not as game like because your set is a little bit closer to position 4. You're the way you're running things, you're hitting against no block. It's better than 1 is as far as trying to get reps, but again, it doesn't help the setter because they're just kind of setting 53s the entire time instead of setting the length of a ball or setting the ball on the move or having to pivot into a set, stuff like that.
Awesome. Okay. Former Keano College women's head coach and coaching with Ace Volleyball Club now, Nick Davies. What should we be doing more of at the youth levels that will filter up to our senior women's team to help them continue to gain ground on the top countries in the world? Good question, Nick.
Hit the ball hard.
Okay.
Like at U12, when we do U12 camps, we just ask them to hit it as hard as they possibly can. And if they can hit it into the back wall, we celebrate the fact that they hit it. too often we worry too much about losses at a younger age, and we get away from hitting the ball hard.
Okay.
The second thing for me is trying to teach volleyball in context of how we use it in the game. So often we will teach a skill and throw it into the game instead of the other way around. When I do U10 to U14, well, actually U18 camps, the very first thing we do is hitting, and we do it from a set rather than toss. And even though the athletes can't really set, throw it over their head and they slap as high as they can so a person learns what their vision is.
Right.
Too often we teach volleyball backwards, where we teach them the skill and then put it into context, where the athletes have no idea why they're passing a volleyball to a target. They don't know the need of the target, but if we teach the very first thing we do is hitting from a setter, then they get why they're passing the ball. They're passing the ball so that person can actually set a hitter.
Right.
And then we can break it down a little, worry about more of the technical side, but they need to know context.
And I think there's obviously some genetics with obviously athletic ability when we speak about hitting the ball hard. But how do you train athletes to get more torque, to get more power behind their contacts? What should we be doing at a youth level to try to amplify that skill at a younger age so you don't have to reteach it at U Sport?
Well, we talk about the net being the door jam.
Okay.
And your body being the door. So you want to slam the door. So when you approach, you want to jump so your door is open to the center.
Yeah.
And then when you hit it, you want to hit it so that you're slamming the door. So quite often, athletes will jump with their shoulders facing, so they're already shut.
Yes.
So we say, what kind of noise can you make there? Like, nobody even knows you're angry. You haven't even slammed the door. So open and slam the door, and then they get the idea of rotating around their spine and engaging their whole body into the attack. And so we talk about that quite a bit, about opening and slamming the door and really slamming it.
That's a great analogy. I like that one. I just wrote that one down. So thank you for that, Lee. Hayden Nickel, what are some challenges of recruiting to a smaller university? Do you find you lose many athletes to schools with more academic programs or funding? If so, how do you deal with those issues? Good question.
Well, I'm starting a new bio that Brandon is the Kelowna of Manitoba, because we've lost a few recruits to Steve last year. So, people are saying, but Lee, it's Kelowna. So I'm just saying Brandon's the new Kelowna, just so people are wondering.
Okay.
When we did talking to a recruit, if they say they want to do engineering, we can do engineering, but you have to end up your degree at the University of Minnesota. So you don't really do it at Brandon. You do a science degree and then transfer. And we have a guaranteed transfer if your marks are high to the University of Minnesota. But we don't have any of the other professional degrees, so it's difficult. We've lost some recruits because they wanted to be veterinarian, so they go to school that they have that program that they can transfer into. But we talk to them, we offer what Brandon's all about. We have an amazing football community here in Brandon. Like, our crowds are full. We have our athletic department does a tremendous job on game day. We have great support. The athletes are known where they go. You're shopping and they're talking about what happened on game day, with people in the grocery store. So you get a totally different experience here than you would at a bigger school.
Cool.
With only a little over 3,000 students, everybody kind of knows who you are. The professors know who you are. They're to help you. Our captain, Raven Weeb, she's going to be our captain next year, came home from a road trip and was going over the slides and was having a tough time understanding it. So she emailed her professor, and he said, I'll meet you at school, and this is on a Sunday. And he retaught the lesson to just her because he understands that she's working hard in the school and working hard at, being an academic All-Canadian. So he knew that and took time to help her. And, that's what the great thing about a small school is about.
Awesome. Greg Barthel, It is empty. Your whiteboard's empty. What is usually on it?
Practice plan for the day. We also on the side, we'll have what we want to accomplish that month. So we do our seasonal plan, and then every month we write down on the side what we're hoping to accomplish, so we just don't get caught up in the day-to-day grind and miss out on things.
Right.
And plan our practice there, and then recruiting kind of list is also on there. Okay,
that's why you erased it before this conversation, right?
Yeah, that, and we're starting again. So.
Fair. Another question. Sorry, go ahead.
Greg Bartel's probably one of the
Bartel, sorry.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best coaches I've ever coached with briefly or against, and that gentleman has done a tremendous job of better at coaching. So, hi, Greg.
Looking at attack velocity, what things can young players, elementary and middle school ages, do to hit a ball with good velocity down the road? I think we touched on this a little bit already, but let's assume kids aren't born with a good arm. What can parents do with their kids?
Okay, so it's the whole idea of timing. And too often we get caught up in chaining the biomechanics instead of chaining timing. So we already know if you open your door and you slam the door, you get all harder. But now if you wait, like an elastic band, bring yourself out, or you wait long, and you can just snap into it, you're going to generate more power if you buck that with your open door, slam the door harder. So it's teaching the athletes to when to go. So is it a third tempo set? Is it going to be higher? So I have to wait until the ball leaves the setter's hands to go get it. That's my visual cue. Is it going to be a quicker set? So for most middle years, it's teaching them what they're looking for, because quite often we all do little tiny steps to be safe in order to hit the ball. But if I can wait longer and come in bigger steps and harder, I'm going to hit the ball way harder. So it's like teaching them cues. We get caught up in the biomechanics end of it rather than the vision end of it.
Okay, great answer. Paul Funk, hey, Coach Carter, the pandemic is affecting players of all levels and coaches. Are there any silver linings you see for players during this time? Good question.
Well, there's a lot of opportunity for athletes because their jobs aren't around, and it's harder to get going. So one, they have more time to work out in great physical shape, and two, there's an opportunity to watch a lot of volleyball. There's tons of volleyball on YouTube, and you can watch it. And don't just watch it as a spectator. Watch it from a coach's point of view or from a player's point of view. Find the left side hitter if you're a left side, and watch their movement patterns. Watch how they're, what they're looking for. Check how they're doing and things that they're doing. You learn so much from just watching and analyzing what is going on in the game of volleyball. There's so many little things that you can pick up from watching it. So I think people have a ton of opportunity to do that right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the provincial associations are getting they're starting to do more of this sort of stuff. Video conferences with coaches and question and Q&A and all that sort of stuff. So the more interaction we can have. But for athletes, would you be suggesting athletes to be watching it from a coaching point of view as well?
Yeah, like athletes, pick a game to watch, and then watch people in your position.
Yeah.
Like what are their footwork? What are their hands? What are their options?
Right.
And just learning that kind of stuff. Also talking the game, because the more you talk about what you see and how you see things with other, the better both of you get. So it's kind of like problem solving.
Awesome. Man, you're a popular guy, Lee. We got lots of questions here, so I'm just going to keep pounding through them here. So at your level, you very often coach players for a full 5 years. Can you share some of the challenges or joys in coaching a student athlete for that long? Great question, Greg.
There's some there's some athletes that come through your program that really kind of touch you, because your first couple of years with them, they're learning how to be away from home and how to deal with things, and like they're struggling, and you're constantly picking them up, or you're dragging them through things, and all of a sudden in the third year it clicks a little bit, and then in their fourth year they get it, and in the fifth year they're some of your favorite players you've ever coached. But yet your first 2 years, you're really, I don't know, the word battle's a little bit too much, but you had to drag them along a little bit more.
Right.
And those athletes are amazing. When you watch them finish, see the great women they become, it's awesome. It's challenging because you always try to keep things fresh. So the beginning of the year, when we're, again, moving forward and trying to help the first and second years learn a little bit more about the systems, our fourth and fifth years are going through it again for the fifth time, so we need to put a little bit more of a leadership position with it and have them helping out and doing that. And so it becomes a challenge. Also trying to keep the team building stuff that we do a little bit fresh, so that it's not always the same thing over and over for them. So yeah, 5 years is a long time, but it goes by really fast.
It does go by quick. Dalhousie women's head coach Rick Scott has joined us. Hi, Lee. What do we got here? Manitoba is a relatively smaller province in terms of population, but is very large in terms of volleyball interest, athletes, and coaches. What have been the benefits of or challenges of having so many good volleyball people around you?
Manitoba, this volleyball is unreal, and they have so many coaches who understand the game and have been part of it for a long time. You see how they do it's great. Like there's always people to ask questions with and to get opinions from. And then there's another 200 in the crowd that also will give you your opinion if you want. So it's that way, but it's also so positive because we have so many quality volleyball people in the area. Like just in Manitoba, we have 1.1 million people, so we're a little smaller than Calgary just itself.
Yeah.
And we have people who've coached national championship teams and club level and been part of university national championships and have done stuff with the national team, and it's just there's so many great quality coaches here. It's a fun province to be a part of.
Awesome. I don't know who wrote this, but it's from Sitting Canucks. So someone from Volleyball Canada's sitting volleyball team. Hi, Lee. Within your own equation of success, what are the top 3 items that you think you need more focus within youth volleyball? Did you get that?
So I, again, am a big believer in teaching the game in context. So when you're planning your practice about what happens on either side of the action that you're looking for, and then trying to build your drill around that. So it's, the idea of the game helping influence your drill, but doesn't necessarily mean just going out there and playing wash for 2 hours. I think that's an important part. I think coaches, watching other coaches and being part of it, like finding a mentor and getting into as many other people's gyms as you can to learn and see how people do things, and to keep learning, like to question what's going on. I think that's so important for young developing coaches, not to get stuck in your own gym your entire career.
Right. 3 items that you think you need more focus on. Okay, let's take it a step further regarding what we're teaching at the youth level. What do we need to be focusing on to teach these athletes now at the younger ages to better, to increase the speed of the game, the power of their hit? We touched on that a bit. What are things? Let's go down to the U13, U14 age group. What are 3 items that we need to focus on at those age groups?
um, it's all about, to me, it's so much about vision. We tend to forget about the vision part of it, like what we're looking for as far as where all is going, can we have. And even if you look at the systems that a lot of teams play when they're younger, like we were taught when I first volleyball, we taught five, which is okay if you're using it for right reasons, but you didn't need to look at anything. The ball was set, and you just watched the ball, and I knew I had to go to the line if I was in 6, or I had to go to the corner if I was in 5, or I had to move up and cover tips if I was in 1, if the ball was set to the left side. And I didn't have to learn to do anything else, and if the ball came to my little zone, I made a dig, and it was pretty simple, but we took out the vision, where I think at U13, people need to play multiple positions.
Yeah.
They need to learn what each position, what you're looking for, and what's the responsibility of it. Our U14 team won 2 years ago, the last time we had U14 nationals. Our Cats U14 team won the nationals at Bird, playing a 6-3 and fair play all the way through nationals. So they had everybody take turn at setting throughout the tournament, and there's always 6 different setters in each match. And so that group of athletes are coming through, and they've learned so much about volleyball. Their coaches have done such a great job of teaching them what each position role is and what to look for, so that it's not just about playing a zone. It's like see ball, get ball. If it's your area, go get it.
Well, that's a great context to put it in. God, I can go so much deeper on that one. I think that's awesome that they played equal play at U14, had different setters, multi-positions. I can't speak enough about that sort of context. And I know that we've talked about with other coaches in past conversations, there are those clubs out there, or not clubs, but teams that, they'll take 9 players just so that they can try to stack a team and not play fair, and while other teams take 12. So are you a believer in a 12-player roster at a young age?
I'm a believer in 12 players. I'm a believer in as many people play as possibly can.
Amen.
Unfortunately, logistics is the problem sometimes, where not enough gym time, not enough coaches. I think 12 players you should be able to train and get better at.
Yeah.
And there's also some logistics where some teams have 10 players. So I also understand that.
Yeah.
The more people we keep involved, the better off the sport's going to be.
Totally agree with you on that. Derek has a question. Any worries this year's Canada West schedule will become the norm?
I hope not.
No kidding.
I love our schedule that we have. I love the fact that we're a Western Canadian. We travel. We compete against the best, all the time. It's not just a little zone kind of area. You're challenged every weekend. I love that, but I also understand where we're at right now, and to go. Then I'm hoping that it might be more than 1 year, just because of finance. Powers to be understand how important the student experience is compared to the money issue. But yeah, I'm hoping that this is not the norm.
Fair. Sorry, I skipped this one for Chad from Thompson River University. Hey, Carter, in regards to seeing the next level and how different that is from U Sport, I would say we have a very competitive, in brackets, close league, but the level needs to be pushed to a higher level if we are going to start producing more world-class players. What do you think we need to be? What do you think we need to be able to do this?
Hit the ball harder.
Fair enough. Sorry, Chad.
We have to learn how to play off blocks. We have to learn how to score in many different ways. We have to play the game faster and with more options. And with that comes a ton of errors. And it takes a while for people to catch up to that speed and to do those kind of things. Like I love our league. Like our U Sport league is great all the way across Canada. Like, we have some great programs, and we're playing very good Canadian volleyball, but we need to, still push it another level. And I'm sure, Tom with the national team will say the same thing. We now have some athletes that are physical enough and being able to hit the ball at enough pace that we need to keep them going, and then the rest of it will come.
Okay. You mentioned Jeana Schmidt earlier. She has joined us. Love this lady. I got to pick her mind a lot in Halifax, and a mentor of mine as well. So Jeana Schmidt from SFU. Hi, Lee. What will your first week back at practice after this break look like? And how much do you use block training within your practices? Training within your practices. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jeana. My first week back it's going to be a lot of 2-on-2, 1-on-1, 3-on-3, no jump kind of tournaments. So we will do some different kind of things to build load a little bit. I think by the end of the first week, we might be jumping for 20, 25 minutes. We can't assume that anybody has been able to jump or to play or lift properly under these situations right now, so we'll need to build that better. We'll play like skinny long court, split the court in half, and we'll do 2-on-2 where I do 2 contact, so the ball comes over to me and I'll pass to myself and set to myself. Meanwhile, my partner has to run around me at her, and then she hits the standing down ball or sets it over, and the other side's got to do that. But yet it's a competition. We'll do those kind of things. We'll do a short court game where the first contact's got to go off the net. So you set the ball over, and I got to play it into the net, and my partner has to play it off, and then I play it over. And then, we try to do kind of that kind of stuff just to the game stuff and to build some fitness and to just kind of get comfortable with the ball again. The second part of the question, how much do I use block training in my practice? Jeana knows that I barely use block training. It's call it a tutor phase at the start where we use it for warm-up, and it just to put the idea of what we're going to work. At one time I was listening to John Kessel, and he said that, consider it kind of like medicine. And too often we give the medicine at the beginning and say at some point in time you're going to need to take this to survive in the game of volleyball, where I believe that we only need it if somebody is really struggling with the skill. Like if somebody is goofy-footed, for example, we'll put criteria in our drill where they can only score if they hit sharp to position 5. And if that doesn't get their left foot in front so that they can hit the ball to 5 easier, then we will actually stop and break it down for them and then put them back in and try to go again. Like, we don't spend a lot of time on box arm swings because we have a lot of people that have a decent enough arm swing. One of my biggest eye-opener when it came to, like people use the term of baseball, I think, there's a minimal transfer in like I look at the Brazilian team, and there's not a lot of baseball in Brazil. There's not a lot of throwing type games that they play. They play a lot more with their feet and, like those kind of things. And you watch them throw a ball out at the start of championship games, and they're goofy footed and the wrong arms going forward, and they don't have, like they look like they've never thrown a ball before because they probably haven't. Right. And then you watch them play, and they've got the purest arm swings going. So, it's a separate skill, and we need to teach it that way, where when you're younger, playing catch helps build your shoulder muscles. So I see how that'll help you hit the ball harder, but it doesn't necessarily mean transfer that a real good baseball player is going to be able to be a real good attacker, or a real good tennis player isn't going to be able to be a real good attacker. Those are two separate skills.
So let's, we talk about hitting the ball harder, slamming the door, all that sort of stuff. And over the last, I would probably say 2 years, we've talked about injury prevention and stuff like that. And you're seeing, some coaches are teaching, come right over top where you get that sort of pinch point in your rotator, while other coaches are kind of, swinging, kind of bringing your elbow around, if you will. What are your thoughts on this? What do you teach?
In the middle, if we're running a true first tempo offense, your arm needs to be up and over already.
Right.
If you're on the outside, you can have a lower drag, and you can bring your arm in lower or high. You don't need to have it up and back. Like, your elbow doesn't need to be totally up and back. You could have a continuous motion with it to kind of work on your shoulder a little bit that way.
Okay.
In that, the middles tend to get less volume as far as attacking than the outsides do.
Right.
So middle shoulder is still something to worry about, and they need to make sure it's strong enough to have that middle arm swing. But your outsides, are the same. You're them to have a lower elbow drag.
Okay. Brenda Willis, do you have a specific set of guidelines with regard to risk/reward in serving? If so, is it a team approach or an individual approach? Good question, Brenda.
We've gone away from talking about serving errors. So we want you to go back and hit your best serve no matter what the situation is and how it works, and try to be comfortable with it. And so we used to say one error ratio, and we also that what the other team passes off your serve. But we started going to speed. So we during our games at home, we radar gun what people are serving. So in one match, Raven, our captain, her average speed was 65 and 70 kilometers an hour on her little float that she does. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the game, she got 2 aces in a row by hitting a 48 kilometer speed. I don't know if she did it on purpose or if it was just the end of the game, but just that change made a difference. And the ball fell in front of the two packers that she was serving toward. So we've gone away from worrying about servers, and we just want our team to serve aggressive to the zone that we're trying to hit. And they make a decision whether or not they feel that they need to go after it full or put it short or things along those lines.
So are you a coach that sits there with their clipboard and puts a number on your hand and gets all secretive and tells them where to serve to, or is it like a pre-game conversation? It's like, okay, you've watched your film, you're like, we're gonna serve whatever position one all game long, or is it again athlete discretion where they go, I don't think that's a good shot right now, maybe I'm gonna mix it up? Like, how much freedom do they have on that?
It's both. So every athlete knows what our game plan is in each rotation.
Sure.
And then we have Dean sitting at the end of the bench making suggestions on where we're trying to serve.
Okay.
And we'll follow it. They like it because it's one less thing they have to worry about during the game as far as, they're in rotation 4 now, so serve this player high to the back corner, so they just go back and they kind of trust Dean. But they also have the right to serve somewhere else. So if they see somebody get up and they're favoring an ankle a little bit, they have permission to go away from what Dean called to serve another player. Or if they're in a situation, also their heckler in their brain is getting after them and we're asking them to do something they're not comfortable with, they can hit their best serve. So, we have permission for them to be volleyball people as long as they can justify it when we're asking what's going on, as long as they have a great volleyball reason.
Sure. So let's talk about athlete development now at a club level with the same topic. Again, you see coaches sometimes going, whatever number on their clipboard. And then it's funny, it's interesting, funny, where, you see a coach go, yeah, serve to 1. And then they serve like to the complete opposite corner, and just at a young age. So is this something that you would, at U Sport, they're skilled athletes. There's a game plan, stuff like that. What would you suggest at a club level? Let's call it 13 to 15 age group. And then let's do 16 to 18. Does it differ? What are your thoughts?
I think at 13 to 16, you should probably just let them go back and hit their serve they're confident with.
Yeah.
You can give them strategy. Like we want to serve to zone 1 because this is the weaker reception zone that we know about. So
sure.
Yep. I've noticed that a lot of times when under stress, they'll serve to if we're calling it, younger kids will serve opposite because in a moment they forget zone switch when it crosses over. So like you serve to zone 1 and they're standing in zone 1 and they serve to 5. And then when you talk about it after, you're like, do you remember that switched? And they're like, oh, just because of stress.
Yeah.
That is happening. 16 to 18, you can even do more tactical stuff with your serve, I think.
Sure.
Taking players out, positioning, and explaining why you do those things.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Then a coffee that I have a dry throat, not because I'm sick, just so everybody knows.
Okay. Megan Bradshaw. Many of your former athletes have gone on to coach at a variety of different levels and have been very successful. Why do you think so many Bobcat athletes turn to coaching after 5 long years of youth sport? She obviously didn't cue in the first 5 minutes of this conversation.
Megan is one of those coaches that Rick Scott was talking about in Manitoba that has had a lot of success in coaching and has been around a lot of greats. She's a assistant coach here with Phil at UW.
Yeah.
So I think, Megan, the answer to that is because they love volleyball and that we've done a great job in Manitoba in setting up a culture where volleyball is something that people love to be part of. And I think they miss it when they're done playing and they're trying to find a way to stay connected. And they have a lot of knowledge from just being a youth sport athlete that they want to be part of it. And they'll start off as a coach and helping out. And the next thing you know, they're coaching everywhere and doing those kind of things. And I think that's the reasoning behind it. I think it's our culture in Manitoba that teaches people to fall in love with volleyball.
Awesome. Just bugging you, Megan, on that one. Coach Mike Kramer. Coach Lee, do you believe offense wins over matches over defense? What do you focus on more, offense or defense?
I think you need to focus on both, but offense scores you points, and ultimately the team that scores the most points wins.
Right.
So, but I think you need to learn to play the game out of system so much. Like, especially with the Mikasa, we're out of system way more than we're in system. And so we need to learn to play and how to attack a ball when you're out of system, how to draw a block, not just give up free balls, how to draw those kind of things. And I think that's a big part of it. And defense puts you at the out of system side. So ultimately, offense scores more points than defense, but defense is set you up to get in this position where you have up to 4 points.
Have you had conversations with Tom Black now that he's the women's head coach? And like, does he pass on his sort of philosophy and his lingo, if you will, so that, we can prepare athletes at U Sport to potentially make the national team at some point in their career?
I've talked to Tom a couple times, but not really in depth about what he is seeing and wanting. Like, I've watched a bunch of his stuff like this that he's done.
Yeah.
And so I haven't. Yeah. Talked to Shannon quite a bit when we were at the junior tryouts. She was able to break stuff down for me and help me that way,
right,
which helped go on. Unfortunately, I find with our stuff in Canada, we rip our information. Like, we got really close with Lupo. Like, people don't realize that group of women were one win against Puerto Rico away from making the Olympics. And they had a tough time with it. And we competed really hard in the Volleyball Grand Prix. And, the women were doing a great job of getting better with Lupo. And then everything moved. And Tom's now, then we went to the other coach for a little while. And now Tom's taken it back over. And we're kind of starting to reinvent again, but not so much different than the way Lupo running thing.
Right.
And I just think that we need to be, and Tom's so open. Lupo was so open. Like, you want to come and ask questions, he'll sit and talk to you for hours, and Tom's the same way. Like, he's really open. You want to come watch, come down. He'll, put you part of it. Where Lupo, him, it was like, no, you're not just coming to watch. If you're here, you're going to be put to work doing stuff. So,
and that's awesome.
Yeah. Lupo, he did a tremendous 8 years for our women's volleyball team, and I think sometimes he doesn't get the credit that deserves for how hard he worked and how he shared for move things forward. And I saw him doing the same thing, and it's exciting. Like, yeah, it's been fun. I remember when the men were still there, I was able to watch the women and help and be part of it, and then sit and watch Glenn run his practice right after. And then Glenn actually sat down with me one day and said, "Here's my laptop. Let's do everything." And I think Tom's that kind of person too.
I agree. And we had Tom and Glenn Hogue on this program. And Tom, we had some technical difficulties. That was our first one, so I felt so bad. I was so frustrated. But we've had him on, and I'd love to have Tom on again. But again, both those gentlemen, pretty much open books. Like, there's whatever you want, whatever you need. They're more than catering to help us as coaches, at least speak the same language. Question here from Lars Johnson. Before moving to the Healthy Living Center, how did you recruit players given the small school and relatively outdated facility?
Hi, Lars. Lars was actually an assistant coach with me for 1 year, and then he moved out to Halifax and worked with Rico while he was getting his law degree, I think. So Lars is a name from the past. We were lucky. We're still lucky that Manitoba has a lot of really good volleyball. Yeah. And we got a lot of the games from 2001 through, 2005 group stay and come and play with us. A lot of the young people from Brandon and rural Manitoba came. And then because we were able to track a couple of college transfers. They were really, really strong. And then a couple of athletes came back from the U.S. And we were able to put together a program. And then because of that, then other people wanted to come and play. Right. And it's been fun because the biggest base has been from Manitoba. Lately, it's changed a little bit because more of the Manitoba athletes are in the province and going to other schools. So we're competing more rather than just against the two other schools. We're competing like nationally now, and so we have to recruit a lot more out of province athletes as well. So it's changed a bunch, but before we were lucky enough to get athletes, and then they were helpful enough to recruit other athletes. So awesome. Yeah, it was good.
Do you have any books that you would suggest for coaches to read during this COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, I love reading, so I usually have 2 or 3 on the go. Okay. Greatly by Brené Brown was recommended to me 3 times in 1 week, and so I started reading the book, and it's a really good book, and it has a lot to do with culture.
Sorry, what's it called? What's it called? Sorry.
Daring Greatly. Okay. By Brené Brown. Okay. And then the Volleyball Cook Wizards book by John Foreman and Mark Lebedew. Okay. They just interview international coaches, and they put their interviews in there, and it's a really great book just to see volleyball specific. Same with Coach Volleyball Champions by Virtual. Mm-hmm. That's Canadian-based one mostly, and they interview youth sport coaches about how they do things. Great volleyball ones. People working with high-performance women, I think you should read the book In the Water, They Can't See You Cry. And it's by Amanda Beard, and it's a really interesting, tragic kind of story about an Olympian from the U.S. who had a lot of success at a young age, and how the conversation just kind of never happened with her about how things change and how she moved forward. And it's a pretty tragic book at times, and I really think it was a very important read for me to deal with some of our athletes who have this a lot at U16, and then when they get to university, they're not, the best player. There's very rarely where you get an athlete that'll come in after first year university and be able to dominate like Van Wright, right?
Right.
Most of the athletes come in are really good, and then they get here and they're playing against women who understand the game, and then they feel their mental side of their game really drops, and too often we ignore that. That book was really enough for me. Then What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. Just about continually learning, and you have to change. You can't, just because you got to the level doesn't mean that what got you there is going to get you to the next level. You have to realize what that level needs and then work to get there. So those are some big books that influenced me in the last year.
Awesome. Great ads. We're coming up on that 1 hour. So Lee, any final thoughts, any shout outs you want to throw out there before we part ways?
No, I've been involved with a fun coaching chat as well. We've had some with Mark Dodds and Austin Dyer and Cisco and Taylor Ferrer. So Cisco Ferrer is from College of the Rockies, and the two Dyer brothers from Lakeland, and Dodds out of the U of S. We talk quite a bit on about coaching and see different things. And then we formed one where we do a Zoom meeting every couple of weeks with Steve and Paul Funk and myself and Olivier and Rico, kind of just make fun of each other, and that's been fun learning as well. So my advice to move forward is get into as many gyms as you can, watch people coach, and be part of it. Like I have most of my lifelong friends are volleyball coaches, and they're great people involved in the sport. People who stay a long time in the sport are usually really super people. The people that kind of fade away. Yeah, volleyball is a great fraternity. That's the way I'm trying to say.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Lee, it has been awesome. I've written quite a lot of stuff down on this conversation, so I appreciate you spending the hour with us, and look forward to seeing you back on the court with your team, obviously sooner than later.
All right, thanks, Dave. Hopefully, I made sense. So
it was awesome, Lee. We will be touching base soon.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. There you have it, Lee Carter from Brandon University. Next Friday, it's all about beach volleyball. We have the head coach, Kira from the University of Alabama, joining us. So all you beach enthusiasts, beach coaches, next Friday is, again, all about the beach game. So it'll be 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Hope everyone's safe. Thank you for joining. We will add this to our YouTube library, and look forward to talking to you guys soon.